Hello friends, this is Otz, and if you didn't catch it, the developers gave us a massive update on what is coming next for DVD and its next major patch. Some of the things are really good, and I'm going to talk about them, but there's also some points that I find very concerning, so much so that I wanted to make a video now before we even get a chance to try them out, just because I genuinely think that some of them might hurt the game a lot, and they signal something bad about the direction DBD is going. First, though, let's talk about the things that are unquestionably very good for the game. The Bloodweb changes are amazing. You will now be able to buy multiple things in the Bloodweb with just one click, or better yet, buy everything in bulk, which is going to make you spend less time leveling up, more time playing the game. Nothing bad to say about that. This is awesome if it's done right. Next up, the visual heartbeat indicator. This will let you see visually what you should already hear with your ears, and it's an amazing accessibility option for people that are hard of hearing. And if you're not one of those people and you don't like it, you can turn it off. The implications for the gameplay are pretty minimal, and I think it's overall a really good feature, so kudos for that. Another thing that doesn't affect the gameplay very much is the rift changes. They're going to make the rift cosmetics at the end a bit more distinct. Good. And also make it so that any new character that drops has a tome related to them soon after, as long as it's an original character. No effect on the gameplay, but it's good to know. Something that will affect the gameplay a lot is the map changes. Gas Heaven is going to be reshuffled a little bit, and the long car walls are going to be broken down, which is amazing. Sometimes in the past, the developers have been a bit hit or miss with their map changes, but at least reading from these notes, it seems like they really do understand what the issues were with these maps, so that's great. Blood Lodge is also having a bit of a shuffle where the main building will be in the middle, which will make it a bit more interesting for many killers that didn't like the whole open area, and that's awesome. These changes will also spill a little bit into the other Autohaven maps. As we've said, it's not 100% guaranteed that the rework will make the map better, but it does look pretty promising. Some other things that look promising, but I'm starting to see a bit of a concern, is the flashlight changes. There are a few killers that get affected. Actually, there's quite a few killers that are affected by flashlights in special ways, and some of them are not going to be affected by flashlights anymore. The Wraith is no longer vulnerable to being flashlight burned. The Wraith is not a super strong killer, and this was a very weird interaction, so sure, okay, I'm alright with that. The artist will not have her birds be disappearing anymore when a flashlight is shown on them. I mean, she's not very popular, so you might as well give her that, whatever. The Hag is a little bit more interesting. Instead of being able to remove the flashlights, the traps with a flashlight, survivors will now be able to do it base kit. So flashlights no longer remove the traps that the Hag can put down. Instead, you need to get very close to them and disarm them manually, which I guess is going to be similar to Demogorgon. A small buff, I would say, overall for the Hag. Did she need it? Yeah, I think this is a decent change, no problem. The next one is a little bit more controversial though, and it's the nerfs. The nerfs, if she's holding a blink, you can burn her. This is possible to do that. And this is really, really rare because she needs to hold it for a long time and no one does this. And if this is the only thing that gets taken away, that's fine. But I do hope that they don't take away the other part of the nerfs with flashlights, which is the fact that you can prevent her from blinking with a flashlight. This is something that at high level happens very often in tournaments, and anytime a survivor with a flashlight plays against a good nurse, this typically comes into play. I'm going to show you a little example here from Aaron, who uploaded a video against a really, really strong nurse, and he's using the flashlight right there to prevent the second blink from happening. This is very important, and it's one of the biggest counterplays this killer has, believe it or not. If this is removed, I think that would be quite sad. So I'm not a big fan of that, but the wording is not very clear. At least, however, survivors still have Dead Hard, right? They can still use, if they mess up the flashy, that's a good example, but if they mess up the flashlight, they can always use Dead Hard, and I think we see an example of it right here. Hold up. Where? Right here. So Dead Hard is a really powerful perk against high tier killers like Nerfs. As you can see, he just gave a second chance to the survivor, but it might not be for much longer. This Dead Hard in the next update will not be possible to do because it's one of the perks that's getting changed. Gearhead, which is a tracking perk, is getting a little bit stronger. Awesome. Overzealous lets you do gens a little bit faster after you break a totem. It will also now work if you bless a totem, and it has its numbers increase a little bit. Nothing crazy. This is a perk that's usable. The 10% is not that big of a deal when you take into account the fact that you need to spend time on bones. But these changes are fine. But then we have Dead Hard and Pain Resonance, two of the strongest perks on each side, taking big nerfs. Pain Resonance makes gens regress automatically. Every time you hook someone on a white hook, it's really powerful and you can use it multiple times. Now you can only use it once per survivor. First time you hook that survivor on a white hook, bam, the gen regresses. Total, you can do that 4 times, as opposed to before where you could do it 7, 8, 9, up to 12 if you wanted to. So massive nerf to Pain Resonance, which will now only be usable 4 times at most. And massive nerf to Dead Hard. Dead Hard works the exact same as before, but you need to activate it. It's very similar to Work on Live Forever, the other perk from David. So that means that on your first chase, and this was a first chase, you will never be able to use Dead Hard anymore. It will be something that you use later in the game. Do I think that these changes to Dead Hard and Pain Resonance are the best? Probably not, maybe not ideal, but if this helps to break up the meta and promote other perks, I'm all for it. The next change, though, I understand a little bit less. Overcharge and Calobrine are both nerfed, and especially Calobrine I think is nerfed very significantly. Now, if I understand correctly, I could be wrong here, with 200% you made the regression basically twice as strong, plus the information, and now it's only 25%. So I think this perk is functionally dead. I don't think anyone will want to run this perk. And I have a feeling, and I want to be wrong here, but I have a feeling that the reason why they're nerfing these 2 perks is just because they don't want the Skull Merchant to be even stronger at 3-genning. And this is the only indirect way they can do it through perks. So I'm not a big fan of this. I think some of these perks deserve slight changes. I generally don't think Colobrine by itself was even a problem. So I'm not a big fan of this. Truth be told, but hey, that's very subjective. Maybe in the grand scheme of things, nerfing this perk was necessary to move away from the gen kick meta. Sure. Circle of Healing is also getting nerfed. If you are injured in the Circle of Healing, your aura will be shown to your teammates so that they can come and heal you, but you can no longer heal yourself inside the Circle of Healing boon, and medkits no longer work inside. Generally, this is an amazing change. This makes Circle of Healing a perk that can be worth it with teamwork, a bit harder for solos, but worth it with teamwork, but not a jack of all trades, amazing heal perk that makes everything else obsolete. However, there are other things that have come with the healing changes that I am very concerned about. Healing is now going to take 24 seconds base kit. Not altruistic healing, not self-caring healing, all of it. All of it is going to take 24 seconds. I don't know how this is going to go. Yeah, sure, survivors will make it, botany knowledge, adrenaline will become even more popular than it is right now, I suppose. Like, they have healing perks to combat this, sure. But so do killers. And I don't know if there's a tug of war. I don't know who's going to come on top. My estimation is that the high tier killers who are already very good at dealing damage are going to be massively buffed, and the lower tier killers will probably see very little of that. Imagine taking 24 seconds for a normal heal. That's basically like having 2 sloppy butchers stacked on top, and every time you take a hit from a blight, for example, you have to go through that. Self-care, if you decide to use it, unless they change it, will take 68 seconds to heal you. If you have sloppy butcher, self-care will take 86 seconds. That's as much as a gen takes. It's pretty insane. They've also changed medkits. And funnily enough, they've nerfed the healing speed that medkits have on other survivors when you heal them. They've done this to all the medkits across the board. And this misses the mark completely. Nobody uses medkits to heal themselves. If you have a medkit, now all of the medkits, by the way, all of them are just 1 heal. Only 1 heal. So that means that if you have add-ons, you get 2 heals tops. That's it, 2 heals. Do you think that people are going to use 2 heals on other survivors to heal them 20% faster? Of course not. Of course not. They're going to use them on themselves. So by trying to make medkits less powerful, you might actually make them more necessary, which is kind of scary. They have hinted that they will do a pass on the medkit add-ons, which we don't know all the details about just yet, but I'm very, very worried about this. I think these changes will make self-healing with some perks such as adrenaline and inner healing a bit more important, but more importantly, people will want to use medkits for themselves because, dude, healing another person for 24 seconds is brutal. Either way, I'm not a big fan of this. I think medkits should have had their self-healing properties be much weaker. Healing others could be the same as it was. Generally, that wasn't a problem. And the normal healing speed could have been the same or very, very similar, as long as healing yourself is slower. And it's going to be slower because Circle of Healing is gone in its current state. So I don't think they needed to do this. I think this really, really misses the mark. But on top of this, there's also been a few changes to some killer add-ons. Let's talk about them. First, the best one, the Pig change. The Pig has a brown add-on called John's Medical File. When she crouches, instead of moving at her speed, which is below survivor speed, now it will be 10% faster instead of 6. Great change. Nothing to say bad about this. This is awesome. Then we have some other changes that I'm not so excited about. Vioni, he has 2 add-ons that literally nobody uses to make yourself faster while you hold your hand out to absorb blood. You almost never do this. Almost never. The speed increase from this, it's negligible. Very negligible. The add-ons that make you absorb more blood from the survivors because they drop more, those add-ons are much better and they save you more speed overall. So these add-ons are terrible. They should be reworked. Instead, they get a minor buff. I think it's worthless, but okay. Freddy, his blindness add-ons are now a little bit longer. Freddy's add-ons are a mistake and they should be reworked, but hey, it's a small tweak. We'll take it, I suppose. The Executioner, aka Pyramid Head, his purple egg add-on made survivors give off a heartbeat when they stepped into your trails. There's 3 add-ons like this, by the way. 3 add-ons. There's 3 add-ons that do this. And they pick the purple and they're like, oh, the purple is too weak. We're going to buff it, make it double as strong. The other 2 add-ons, collecting, I don't know why they don't buff those, but hey, they're buffing only one of those add-ons, and now the heartbeat lasts 3 seconds. This is absolutely worthless. 99% of the time, survivors that step onto your trails are right in front of you, and the heartbeat is not very useful. I mean, it's a buff, I'm not gonna complain. But it seems like this should have been a rework instead. And then we get to the Clown. So the Clown has this very interesting problem, okay? He's a killer that is generally very close to being in a good spot, but you can't buff him, because if you buff him, he has an add-on that allows him to insta-down, and he could be too strong. Instead of reworking this add-on, they have nerfed it again. They've nerfed it again. They've nerfed this insta-down add-on again. It's like, okay, now instead of having 4 bottles, if you pair it with the other add-on, you'll have 3. So now if you want to insta-down survivors, you have 3 bottles total. But guess what? It's still worth it. You can still camp with it. The reason why this add-on probably performs better than his other add-ons is, number 1, his other add-ons are sometimes not that good. And number 2, people can camp with it. If I camp on the hook with this add-on and someone comes and I insta-down them, that's huge. And that happens all the time. They should rework this add-on. Instead of trying to tweak add-ons that genuinely need changes, they should rework it. But you know what? I'm not gonna complain. Sure, we get a tweak, whatever. Maybe they rework it next patch, copium. That's fine. But then we get to the part that really pissed me off. The part that really made me go, what is happening? And that is what they're doing to the Billy. For the Hillbilly, they are making the overheat from normal chance or use a little bit lower, and the overheat from traversing the map a little bit higher. Overall, almost no changes. No problem there. And then in the final paragraph, they just drop very nonchalantly, oh yeah, by the way, the Doom engravings and the Death engravings, we're nerfing them. Yeah, they're just gonna be a bit shorter now. They don't give you as much speed. And this is such a slap. This is such a slap to the face of the 4 people that play Billy these days. The Hillbilly is a killer that has very little going for him compared to other killers. Anything you can do with Hillbilly, like any skill that you have with Hillbilly, if you start to play Blight, you will dominate with. He is not the strongest. He requires far more guessing, far more skill, far more timing, far more map knowledge than the average killer by a mile. And he has 2 add-ons, which are almost identical, that allow him to move a little bit faster while he uses the chainsaw. This is not used for map traversal, it's used for curving. You can get to a loop and then do some funny maneuvers and go around it really fast. It's really hard. It's really not insanely powerful. And I don't say this, a person with 4,500 hours on Billy alone says this. This is GT Vale. It's a very, very popular Billy streamer that made a plea on the forums to please not nerf this. And their argument, which I 100% agree with, is that these add-ons make the Hillbilly fun. And people that are very good with Hillbilly decide to play this, even though they know it's not very strong. Spoilers, it's not very strong, because it's fun. But guess what? These players are very good. So when they go and they kill a lot, they get a high kill rate. So the developers, they look at the Billy add-ons, they notice that 2 add-ons stand out from the rest. By the way, the rest of his add-ons overall in general are absolute garbage. So they see, two add-ons that are problematic. Yeah, they stand out. Let's nerf those two add-ons. That is such a backwards way of thinking. If you talk to any hillbilly player, the conclusion that you would reach is that the hillbilly relies a lot on add-ons to do much of the fun thing that you can do with Billy. What you should do is what they've done to many other killers in the past, make his base kit a bit faster and then nerf the add-ons so that if you have the add-ons, it's the same. And if you don't have the add-ons, it doesn't feel as bad. And that would be amazing. But instead of doing that, quick tweak that no one, frankly, no one asked for, that makes a killer that almost no one wants to play anymore even worse. Nerf to Blight, 0. Why? Because all of his add-ons, none of his add-ons are better than the other. Like, you have 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 add-ons that are insane. So none of them stand out. So I guess because they're all incredibly good, you don't need to nerf them. It absolutely boggles my mind that we look at numbers. When I look at these changes in add-ons, I don't see player feedback in them. I don't see like, oh yeah, Oni players were asking for this. Yeah, Oni players like this. Oh yeah, Freddy players, they wanted this. Oh yeah, everyone's been asking for this. This is just someone looking at an Excel spreadsheet and seeing that an add-on is a little bit below average and being like, let's just tweak it. I find this very disappointing. Everything else here, fine. It's all buffs, minor buffs, or even a minor nerf to a particular add-on. Not a big deal. But this, I honestly, I feel so bad about. I feel so bad about. That, along with the medkits, now potentially become even more necessary because you're gonna need them. I don't know. I feel like you got to realize that these healing changes, they're not going to affect the higher players. The higher players, they can do all gens and get adrenaline, and they can use deliverance, and they can stay injured with resilience. They know how to deal with that. They've played in that meta. But the newer players, the ones that need to use self-care, to be healthy, to feel comfortable, to, everyone's injured, I need to heal to get the rescue. Those people are going to be eaten up if the self-care time is 68 seconds, and if healing other people takes 30 seconds with Sloppy. That is going to absolutely murder low-level players. And then when that happens, they're going to nerf killers overall. I'm very, very worried, and I hope that these concerns are taken into account by the time this PTB drops, and it's time to release it to live. That's all. You guys tell me what you think, and I'm going to log off before I stress myself any further.